Ah, the life of a professional wrestler, constantly on the road, away from your family. They're basically like circus animals who dip themselves in baby oil, so it's nice when every now and again they get to cut loose with a good old-fashioned prank. I'm Senior Siete for 7 Wrestling, and let's take a look at 7 of the most epic pranks of all time. Now, before we get into this, we appreciate your support, so if you enjoy this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and frog splash that notification bell. Number 1. The 1-2-3 Kids Revenge. Alright, we couldn't leave this one alone. If you saw our video on weird WWE wrestling toys, you saw the Hasbro action figure that featured a picture of the 1-2-3 Kid Sean Waltman without his eyebrows. The story there is that one night he was out partying with Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig and the Smoking Guns, and he had a little too much fun and woke up without an eyebrow. Well, the next morning the kid shaved off his other eyebrow, and they never grew back before the photos were taken for the action figure. But there's a second part to this story. While it is widely believed that Kurt Hennig was the one behind the shaving, as he is a legendary prankster, at the time, the kid was convinced that his buddy Kurt Hennig would never do anything like that, and the real culprit was Billy and Bart Gunn. A big believer in one good turn deserves another, Waltman would take his revenge in a civil and reserved manner by frigging putting super glue in Bart Gunn's hat before a match. You see, the Smoking Guns would make their grand ring entrance with big old cowboy hats and cap guns. And the night in question, Bart Gunn had a real problem removing his hat. Apparently, several large clumps of hair were ripped from his glorious mullet before the match could begin. And, according to Kevin Nash, this was the moment that convinced him to bring Sean Waltman into the clique. Apparently, someone who's that fearless is someone you absolutely want on your side. Number 2. I'm embarrassingly proud of that joke. Everybody poops. There's a book about it. We did a video on it. It's natural. What isn't natural is the horrible ways it gets used in backstage pranks. Over the years, such fecal fiascos have included some poop finding its way into Jerry Lawler's crown, courtesy of Sean Waltman and the Clique, or finding its way into Sable's bag, courtesy of Sean Waltman, or, finding its way into Sonny's lunch, courtesy of, you guessed it, Sean Waltman. That's quite a trend. He might have a real problem. Anyhow, for the purposes of this entry, we're going to give Mr. Waltman a break and focus on a much bigger name and a much funnier prank. The Ultimate Warrior wasn't particularly popular amongst the other wrestlers during his time in WWE. Apparently, he had a crazy ego, he was sloppy in the ring, and he could be a real jerk to kids. And upon arriving in WCW, the original prankster Kurt Hennig took it upon himself to get revenge. At the time, the Warrior was doing an odd mystical power gimmick where he could do bizarre things like appear in mirrors that only Hulk Hogan could see and vanish from the ring through a cloud of smoke. Now, I don't mean to burst anybody's bubble, but despite what Distrucity might tell you, the Warrior was incapable of teleportation. The smoke would be released and he'd get under the ring through a trap door. And if someone, had left a bucket of poop under the ring for him to smell for 3 hours, then there wasn't a whole lot he could do about it except sit there and be miserable. Nobody's perfect, but that's damn funny. Number 3, Pepper's phone number. Someday we're going to do a video on the dumbest angles ever, and we'll have a much longer conversation about Pepper the Chihuahua, but for now, just know that for a little bit, Al Snow would carry a live Chihuahua to the ring for some reason. Actually, I lied. There absolutely is a reason. The Chihuahua was a replacement for the mannequin head, otherwise known as head, that Al would carry to the ring, but that head was impaled on a spike by Prince Albert, so I'm sorry, that might have been the dumbest sentence I've ever read. But back to the point, Pepper the Chihuahua went missing, and Mr. Snow started handing out flyers in the hopes that some fans could help him out. Makes sense, and any flyer would have a phone number to call if the person had any information. But in this case, the phone number belonged to his co-worker and make-believe adult film star Val Venus. So when Al held up the flyer on national television, you can imagine Mr. Venus received quite a few phone calls. Apparently, it got to the point that Venus had to get a whole new number altogether. I don't know. After that, maybe Al deserved what would eventually happen to Pepper. Number 4, Dead Man Puking. Look, we've all got our weird quirks, right? We're not here to judge, but one of the oddest fun facts in all of pro wrestling involves The Undertaker and his greatest fear. And it's not heights, it's not snakes, it's not spiders, it's not neck tattoos, it's cucumbers. That's right, the staple of any good salad is enough to give the dead man the heebie-jeebies. Random, right? And just so you think this isn't something basic like, he just doesn't like the taste of cucumbers. No, he literally freaks out. In fact, the reason this made the list is because on several occasions, his manager Paul Bearer would hide cucumbers in The Undertaker's hat. And just seeing them would make the Death Valley Demon toss us cookies. Wow. And you would think someone who's listened to that much Limp Bizkit could stomach anything. Number 5, Eddie's eyebrows. If there was a spectrum of wrestling pranksters ranging from harmless to horrifying, you'd have Owen Hart over on the harmless side, Kurt Hennig somewhere in the middle, and the former WWE Tag Team Champions, the Nasty Boys, all the way on the other end. They were awful. For example, in 1993, while Eddie Guerrero was hanging out with Brian Knobbs and Jerry Saggs during a tour with New Japan Pro Wrestling, the Nasty Boys drugged Eddie to knock him out. First of all, this sounds like the start of a Dateline NBC episode, which begs the question, where's the line between a prank and an actual crime? Yikes. When Eddie woke up, his eyebrows had been shaved clean off. His mustache had been trimmed to resemble the look popularized by Adolf Hitler. They cut his bangs, and they shaved a little triangle into his head. The result left Latino Heat looking more like Frankenstein. And as the story goes, Eddie would gain a measure of revenge later in the tour when he tricked them into eating some garbage. But my goodness, what the Nasty Boys did was so much worse. Number 6, Blackpool Prank Club. Alright, that last one has got me feeling all kinds of ick, so let's finish this off with a couple of fun ones. William Regal had a brief stint in WWE back in 1998 where he exchanged his European aristocrat gimmick for that of a real man's man. He worked with his hands, he shaved with a straight razor, he wore a hard hat, for some reason, like all us real men do. And his theme song was one for the books, just a constant loop of male vocals, trumpeting Regal's virility. It was ridiculous. It did not get over. Fortunately, it did not last long. Let's fast forward 13 years to 2011, where Regal's preparing to square off against one of his future Blackpool Combat Club buddies, Daniel Bryan. As the refined gentleman is making his way to the ring, his usual dark and brooding theme song is replaced with his classic Real Man's Man theme. And Regal can't help but smile and laugh as he's serenaded by, "He's a man, such a man." It's awful. Bryan can't keep a straight face either. See, it was fun. It was funny. And nobody got drugged against their will. Number 7, Owen versus Vince. This list could have easily been the 7 best Owen Hart pranks. Maybe we'll do that another day, but we couldn't have done this without including one of the King of Hearts' legendary ribs. So we're going to go with my absolute fave. Before Triple H ran the whole show, before he was the King of Kings, even before he was a degenerate, he was a Connecticut blue blood. Whatever that means. So his natural rival will of course be an Arkansas hog farmer named Henry O. Godwin. And we know he's a hog farmer because it's right there in his initials, H-O-G. You love subtlety, right? And what better way for this duo to settle their class war at the In Your House December 1995 pay-per-view than with a hog pen match? The rules are simple. The loser is the person who is thrown into a muddy pigsty. What happened during this epic battle is inconsequential, although I will admit that I was always kind of freaked out that Triple H was tossed around in the mud after getting a pretty serious cut on his back. What is consequential is what happened earlier in the day. You see, the person in charge of wrangling all of the pigs wasn't quite sure where to put them, so Owen, being the helpful fellow that he is, showed him exactly where to put them, and by that I mean Vince McMahon's office, and the result was absolutely hilarious. Look at McMahon. He clearly loves this stuff. This has got to be my favorite picture of him ever. Well, or maybe this one. Well, there's our list. Did we forget any other epic wrestling pranks? If so, leave them in the comments section below. Also, if you enjoyed this, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and double underhook powerbomb that notification bell. Until next time, I'm Singer Siete for 7 Wrestling, saying bye-bye.